do? Thank you for coming to episode 2, part 2, over from the Fisticuffs channel over here. And we're still talking about Call of Duty 3. Now, I thought there were some amazing things that I didn't cover on my Fisticuffs channel that I'm going to cover over here. The one thing that Treyarch did not get right in the Call of Duty 3 game, comparative to the Call of Duty 2 game, was the sound. The sound was terrible. It was not centered. It was either on, I think it was on the left headset. I mean, it always sounded like you would hear your footsteps, but they would be behind you. They weren't flush centered with where you were setting up. Here I'm trying to plant the bouncing Betty, and but this is one of my favorite maps, Ronin, and I'm using the Thompson gun. Now the Thompson gun is great. So you could drop shot. Yeah, that's one of the fascinating things about Call of Duty 3. The LMGs did not have a ADSing. When you pulled in the left trigger, they would just like one trigger drop shot. So, I mean, that was important to an effect, you know, as far as, you know, killing people, because it brought in a new era of drop shotting that was important. And I really didn't think that people started developing the drop shot until around Modern Warfare 2. I always used the drop shot. I thought the drop shot was awesome. I mean, it was more prevalent. You know, people started using it once we started talking about World at War and Call of Duty 4. Maybe Call of Duty 4 was really the first point of people using more drop shotting. But you'll notice that in Call of Duty 3, the iron sights are more pronounced. They took time in designing the iron sights coming into focus. So a lot more kick in the weapons than previous Call of Duty. Than any other Call of Duty. Treyarch's Call of Duty 3 to me was the most balanced based on the map structure. If you look at every other Call of Duty that Treyarch has designed, either they designed the maps too small and the weapons did not fit the maps, or they designed the maps too big and the weapons weren't strong enough. Either way, they never, since Call of Duty 3, have had a game that the weapons match the guns. I mean the weapons that match the maps. I'm sorry, excuse me. So those are the things that you really look at as a Call of Duty player. You know, it seems to me that every time we go in and out of focusing into these Call of Duty games, we see the developers, they get tunnel vision. And I'm starting to see this now after looking at every one of these Call of Duty games. Maybe it was to the point where when I covered it in the Fisticuffs video, where I said that, you know, social stratosphere hasn't reached us yet. It's still 2005 or 2006 as far as Call of Duty 3 is concerned. And I think this is when Twitter and Facebook, I think this is when Twitter is first launched, right after this game. So, and it really wasn't being used, and nobody really was like about giving up their free information. It took a while. The next generation of people figured this out, but you know, this is how we see problems implemented into the game. When the only conversation and input that the developers even considered was people who would write or troll on forums. And so you would see the developers focusing on one thing. Oh, the maps are too big and they're not small enough, and we can't get enough action to fight in. So they just focus on that. And there's no other focus as to how the weapons damage should perform on small maps. And this is the thing, like right here, you see the drop shotting and coming up. Obviously, I died because the grenade dropped. Explosive damage, still to this point, has not been fixed. You know, explosive damage wouldn't be fixed up until probably Black Ops 1. So it was about 4 or 5 versions into the revisions into this game until we figured out when Call of Duty would fix this. Another thing too, in regular core games, you can kill your teammates, and there was a punish button. So it kind of destroyed the fact that, I didn't mention that in the Fist video, but it destroyed the fact that it impeded gameplay progress. So, you know, obviously if you wanted a game type for that, you could, and just go ahead and go for that. Now, like I said before in my Fisticuffs video, the major changes were the run button, you know, punishing people that would kill people in the game, and, you know, better articulated iron sights when looking down the sights. Everything was increased. There wasn't really, the sound actually went backwards. I mean, we're talking a 5.1 surround sound in Call of Duty 2, and then the sound went backwards in Call of Duty 3. So, like, I mean, these two studios are working on the same game, and they weren't even in touch with each other since day one. I thought there was a lot of animosity there, and so they did the best they could at copying Call of Duty, but it seems like Infinity Ward didn't give Treyarch all of its tips and tricks. And you could see it in the sound. I mean, obviously you don't know when somebody's coming or going. In Call of Duty 2, they had bells on their shoes, so you hear people like jingling around, and they would find you, and you'd pretty much know where they were at. And this continued on. I mean, both of these games, both of these developers carried on in their own parallels of shitty games, and they continued to design them and never really look back at their old games to see what are some of the major problems, or even try to talk to community people like myself, who are the majority of the population, who correct a lot of games. I mean, we're into the 8th version coming up in Ghost, and I seriously, based on Infinity Ward's track record and based on all the games they've made into their title, I expect a lot of things that still haven't been fixed. And we're talking the new Xbox One generation game system that should be addressed. I mean, these are not engine problems. These are simple reduction of explosives, balancing weapons based on map performance. I mean, when you played Call of Duty 2 and Call of Duty 2 had some kind of lag problem, but in Call of Duty 3, the internet connections were pretty good for you know, Treyarch's. I mean, I think Treyarch's best internet connection game at the time. I mean, Treyarch has never had a game that had good connections. Anyways, we'll continue tomorrow on Call of Duty 4, the next installment of this game. I'll see you then, and I hope you enjoyed this little update of going into the Ghost preview to see what we're going to see in this game. And don't forget, I'll be streaming after that, August 14th, on my Twitch channel. Until next time, get the fuck out of here.